Thank you. Thanks, Vivian. Thank you, everybody, for having me. It's 5 minutes, so I'm going to zoom through, but I'm always happy to hear when experts confirm some of the actions that we've taken, because historically for us in the Great Barrier Reef space, we've obviously been managing tourism and users for over 40 years now. I just wanted to put up a slide that indicated the complexity of the management, and that I'm really focusing on a component of our broader behaviour change, which I think is the journey that we're all on in managing natural environments, is the constant desire to improve human interactions with those spaces. And so we have obviously enacted the zoning and everything else. I did want to highlight that we have a very complex field management program in the authority. So we have what we effectively call the big stick. We have boats out there. We have surveillance happening by air to ensure that some of our completely unacceptable behaviours, for example, fishing in green zones, are really heavily focused from a compliance perspective. If we just go to the next slide. However, even though we have all of this complexity and this amazing program in place, that we have a park that is stretches 2,300 kilometres of coastline, as I'm sure you know, and it's equivalent to about 70 million football fields in size. So regardless of how many resources and how much money we had, we're never going to be able to reach every user in the park every day. And so what we did was we wanted to look at how we can get that towards voluntary compliance, and so that people are taking their own responsibility for their behaviours. And some time ago, we got together an enormous group of stakeholders, and we effectively created something called Responsible Reef Practices. We went through 14 different activities that people do, common activities people do in the park. Oh, I'm so sorry. I talk really fast. I'll slow down. I'm sorry. Okay, so we created these Responsible Reef Practices, and that involved getting stakeholders in a room and everybody contributing to what was the best way and the most environmentally friendly way that you could, for example, anchor, or you could observe wildlife in the park, or you could snorkel. And these were created, and basically the people in the room became the champions for those. And we've continued with that messaging. So we have these YouTube videos to try to reach broader audiences. And then we got right down to very simple behaviours with simple icons, and Be Reef Smart came about, which was really about that targeting what is the specific thing that we do not want people to be doing, and being able to communicate in lots of languages. Next slide, please. We also have online training, so trying to get it out there, setting the acceptable behaviours and allowing people to understand them. Next slide, please. And then we started to focus on local influences. So the slide that Mark presented earlier, one of my favourite things to say is that we're not normal, and trying to find in local communities those people that are considered the norm, those people that are influencers amongst their communities. And so the Master Reef Guide program was born. Next slide, please. This program is really about, the key thing I wanted to highlight here, I think, from the other presenters, is that it's really important to be bringing the right visitor to your destination and establishing early the expected behaviour. Once the visitors all arrived with no expectation on their behaviour, then you're dealing with what their social norms are as opposed to your social norms. And it's very tricky. But this program was created in partnership with our marketing state department in the government. And so we were ensuring that the marketing and the messages that they're delivering are the same messages that people are getting once they arrive here. Next slide, please. There are many objectives to the Master Reef Guide program, and really the one I wanted to highlight today was around leadership. Next slide, please. One of the key commitments of these Master Reef Guides, when they become Master Reef Guides, is that they will encourage responsible behaviour amongst all visitors to the Great Barrier Reef and an awareness of the world-leading management in place to protect it. So that's key for us in the program. Next slide, please. So there's a process where we go through some rigorous selection to select these individuals that will then be representatives of their tourism companies. So they work within the tourism companies and are nominated by their owners. We then connect them together. There's some clicking to do there. I'm happy for you to click through all of them and I'll keep talking. We train them in consistent messaging and consistent information about the reef, but also responsible behaviours, which to be selected, most of them are demonstrating those behaviours. And then we actively promote the Master Reef Guides as the faces, the voice, the people to look out for in their yellow rashies or their blue uniform out on the reef as a symbol of the best behaviour, I guess, of somebody that people strive to want to be like. Next slide, please. And we now have 82 of these Master Reef Guides that stretch all the way from the far north of the Great Barrier Reef to the far south. So I just wanted to iterate that prior to COVID, there were 2 million visitors visiting the Great Barrier Reef and about over 100 active daily tourism operations along the park. We have a program called High Standards, and there are 70 of those operators. And now there are 82 of these Master Reef Guides that are actively out there and on these operations along the reef. Next slide, please. So these are some of the faces, and there are 82 of these faces engaging each day with visitors, setting those expectations, and then communicating through their networks, which for some of them through social media is quite large. And we reach over 2.5 to 3 million people a year through the social media channels of this program. Next slide, please. And that's all. I guess for me, this is one of the faces of one of our Master Reef Guides, who really demonstrates to me what the program's about. Is let me show you my Great Barrier Reef. So thank you.